have come to past institute sessions, some of you have not. So give me a couple of minutes to just walk through. I always believe that learning can create impact beyond our imagination. And I've been always struck by the famous example of Aristotle tutoring Alexander spending a fortune at a time where education was not as much value. So wonderful things can happen when a brilliant teacher and brilliant student comes together, and we have exactly the same opportunity here. At the Institute, we have many brilliant teachers here, and I know for certain that we have many brilliant students, just as a metaphor. I know each of you are teachers in your own right. While we can't make as lofty claims at K-Start Institute as the example of Aristotle, but what is important to note is this tradition of parampara, which is mentorship and peer learning. It's alive, it's thriving, and it's available for the next generation, which is you as you emerge from people who have been there, done that. This is our second K-Start Institute program. We host this twice a year, and at Kalari, we absolutely believe that continuous learning is the most important way that we can add value to founders in their journey. And at K-Start Institute, what we want to help you is to upskill your knowledge, experience, and networks. So the speakers for today, we want to start the session again for working through the agenda. I believe we all today live in an era of great expectations, and today we actually have many great minds amongst us to carry forward this tradition of mentoring the next generation leaders. So in that sense, I salute the speakers for their generosity of time and commitment to give back. And lastly, neither Kiran nor Ravi nor Murthy really need any introduction, but just a couple of things I'd like to share. First, I want to thank Ravi for his, and I think most of you know that Ravi is one of the catalysts in the K-Start program. I know many of you have met him one-on-one, and he has given his time generously to many of you in helping you think through your set of challenges. And I want to thank Ravi for inviting Kiran and Murthy to join us. And the way I see Kiran, because I'm very inspired by her, is she has broken many ceilings, and having built India's largest pharma company, I think since we have mostly tech entrepreneurs here and one or two life sciences entrepreneurs, I think learning about how innovation is absolutely possible and it can be a key differentiator in India. There isn't anybody better to talk about that, among other things, than Kiran. And what Mr. Murthy, Kiran and Ravi have done is they've led the way by putting the first doors on the map of India leading to global greatness, and it's up to each one of you to take from that mantle and run and take it forward and put thousands of doors that put India on the global map. So I'm really grateful, Ravi, on behalf of all of the founders here for bringing this session on effective leadership. And with that, we'll just get started and get rolling.
Yeah, thank you, Bharani. Yeah, this one's good. Okay, good morning. We're only about 17 minutes late, so without much ado, I'm going to launch in. I've already warned my dear friends here that I will be sticking to my schedule, which means that this conversation with Kiran and Mr. Murthy will take 1 hour as planned, and I'll take the second hour Bangalorean, educated in Bishop Gordon School and Mount Carmel College. In 1978, she started Biocon in the garage of a rented house with seed capital of 10,000 rupees. Apparently 10,000 rupees is sort of a sacred figure. I'll come back to that. And today, of course, it's a globally respected biotech company with a market cap of $3 billion. More importantly, Kiran is truly one of those self-made people who's handled extraordinary challenges, and they're beautifully chronicled in this book called Mythbreaker. And if I'm not mistaken, you'll go away with a copy of Mythbreaker at the end of today. She's a recipient of many, many honors and awards, including Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People and a Padma Bhushan. But most impressively, she is both an engaged citizen, a committed, compassionate capitalist, and a generous philanthropist who's pledged half her wealth to charity. Somewhere she finds the time to be a huge voice and influence both on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now, Mr. Narayana Murthy is the founder of Infosys. When I say that, you realize just how inadequate that statement is. It's like saying, oh well, here's Bill Gates, he founded Microsoft. It just doesn't somehow cut it. But Mr. Murthy's background is he's an electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur. He started his career as a system programmer at Ahmedabad. He actually had an earlier startup called Softronics, which he closed down and for a short while worked as a professional before starting up Infosys in 1981 with Nandan and others, again with a seed capital of 10,000 rupees. This time borrowed from Mrs. Sudha Murthy, a fact that she never will allow anybody to forget. Over the next 30 years, Mr. Murthy steered Infosys to become an iconic global company with a market cap somewhere in excess of $35 billion. He's also got a super long list of awards to his credit. I'll single out two. One is the Padma Bhushan. And in 2012, Fortune magazine listed him amongst the 12 greatest entrepreneurs of our time, anywhere in the world. So it's my great pleasure to have worked with both of them on the board of Infosys, and I learn every time I spend time with them. They've been very generous in braving Bangalore traffic and being there, so please put your hands together. Okay, so I'm going to start off with just a few questions, and we'll open it up and then bring it back. Okay, so Smoothie, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. Why did you start Infosys? And did you ever imagine it becoming what it did? Did you have a clear view of what you wish to build or it was emergent?
Well, first of all, I must thank Moni for this opportunity. I also thank Ravi for this opportunity. I have known Ravi for a long time. There are many, many occasions when I have had discussions with him, sought his opinion on various matters. And Kiran, of course, is a very close family friend. She's godmother to Rohan, my son. And there is not a single occasion, positive or negative at home, where she is not part of, or we are not part of. John and Kiran have been very, very kind to us. So this opportunity is an extraordinary one. Now coming back to your question, I used to be a strong leftist. I didn't carry a card as a communist, but other than that, I was a strong leftist in my student days. But when I went to work in France, in Paris, in a French software company, which is now part of Capgemini, that was called Caesar, society that used a system of muscle. We were building an operating system for handling air cargo for Charleston Airport. I must confess I didn't learn much in the office. In the sense, whatever I needed to, I learned at IIT Kanpur. But I learned a lot outside the office. I met people from the left, the center, and the right. I observed a lot about the French society, about the German society, the English society, Italian society, Netherlands society, etc. where these entrepreneurs can create jobs. So I wanted to come back to India and conduct an experiment. I came back to India and then I started, I was working at Systems Research Institute in Pune, and then I started Softronics in 1977 to serve the IT needs of Indian companies, and pretty quickly, about 9 months, I realized that the market was not there for Indian companies, and therefore I realized I had to focus on exports and I had to learn a lot about exports. That's how I went and joined Turkey Computer Systems Limited as the general manager of software. Now, when we founded Infosys, the first objective was to create India's first company of the professional, for the professional, and by the professional, improving my thesis that you can solve the problem of poverty by creating jobs with good disposable income. Second, we wanted to demonstrate that it is possible for an Indian company to achieve a level of excellence that is on par with the best Western companies. Third, we wanted to conduct an experiment in democratization of wealth. We distributed stock options and I distributed shares to my younger colleagues who are 8 levels below me in a very generous way. Fourth, we said that it is possible to run a company with the best governance standard in the world. Finally, we said that we want to create an environment where lots of bright young talent that was planning to go abroad would look at us as an option, if possible, to work at Infosys. These were some of the objectives.
And how long did it take to get to finally the model that worked and scaled up? Was it fairly swift or lots of trials and tribulation?
Oh, it was a long period compared to what all these youngsters are going through. It took us almost 10 years to even have confidence that we could do something from India. Even though our desire was to add value from India, because it took us about 15 days to travel abroad because of the RBI restrictions. It took us, we did not have any data communication line in India till 1988, 89. Then, getting a license to import a computer was taking about 3 years. Because of all those things, until liberalization, which took place in 1991, we could not truly implement global delivery model, which is what I had articulated as sourcing capital from where it is cheapest, sourcing talent from where it is best available, producing where it is most cost effective, and selling where the markets are without being constrained by national boundaries. So the first 10 years was extremely painful. In fact, in 1990, Ravi, you probably know, there was an offer by one of the Indian groups to buy us out for the princely sum of $1 million, and all my colleagues got excited. And then we met on a Saturday afternoon, and I listened to all the people. That was my style. I first listened to all my younger colleagues, and then finally, after taking the good ideas from them, I would then synthesize those good ideas, and then I would give out my opinion, my decision. So finally, I told them, I said, look, it's fine, all of you, not all of you seem to be wanting to sell this company off, but I believe that we have almost come to the end of the tunnel, even though there were no indications of that. And therefore, I want to continue, and I will buy out from all of you. So then within about 5 minutes, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who is, in my opinion, is the smartest, the most market savvy person amongst all of us. And he was the person who said, no, I'll be with Mr. Murthy. He said that in 5 minutes. And finally, in a matter of half an hour, everybody came back to our side. And then I said, from now onwards, we will never be negative, and we will work on that. That was the day when
Infosys took off because fortunately for us, 1991, Dr. Manmohan Singh became the finance minister, Dr. Mr. Narayana Rao the prime minister, and we had economic reforms. And from that time onwards, we never looked back.
Now, Vani asked you the question a little while ago, but I want to repeat it here. Why did Infosys break away from the rest of the pack? There were others before you, there were other good companies started in a similar time frame, yet Infi went on to achieve a certain degree of success which is unparalleled. And you don't need to be modest, you need to be factual.
Well, I think there were several reasons. In some way, because this is a slightly different platform, I'm going to give a few reasons. There I spoke only about one, which was leadership by example, the ability of leader to walk the talk, to communicate values through personal example, all of that. And I think in some way that was what was different amongst all of us. Even though we had a widely distributed equity, it was very clear in the minds of everybody that there was one leader, and that leader had to obviously demonstrate his commitment to the ideals of the company by sacrificing more than others. Second was, right from day one, I believed that the best ideas come out in a company where you have the following attributes: openness to new ideas, meritocracy, a system of fairness and justice, speed, imagination or innovation, and excellence in execution. So in everything that we did, we focused on these attributes. Nobody was scared of walking into anybody's room. I'm saying that, oh, I have this idea. Nobody was scared of giving contrarian opinion. We always say, you can disagree with me as long as you're not disagreeable. Second, we said, when in doubt, disclose. Third, we said, in God we trust, everybody else brings data to the table. So therefore, by and large, and the fourth one that we very religiously followed was, we said, let the good news take the stair and let the bad news take the elevator. So using very attractive short sentences that communicated very important values of Infosys, and by every one of the leaders actually practicing those values, walking the talk, we created an environment where the best talent came to Infosys those days. And number two, they operated in an environment of openness. They operated in an environment of hierarchy of ideas. So I also, finally, I must say that whenever there was a decision to be taken, I assembled a set of bright people. I made sure that there was competence in that group for taking that decision. And my job was to synthesize the good ideas from the extraordinary people that are around me. And I must say this, that I am absolutely convinced, and I am saying it openly in front of you, that I always operated with a firm belief that my younger colleagues were much smarter than I was. My job was to create an environment where each of these people blossomed, each of these people became even smarter than they were. So that's what real leadership is.
Thank you. So Kiran, let me allow Mr. Murthy to collect his breath and turn it over to you. Yours is a very, very different type of a success story. So how did a brewmaster's daughter create such a staggeringly interesting and successful enterprise. And focus in particular, if you can, on this importance of innovation, which is so passionate about how you fashioned a company and a culture that is essentially an innovation factory.
So let me start again by thanking Mani and Ravi, and I can tell you that it's a very special fireside chat because I'm here with someone I've always admired a lot, Mr. Murthy. Murthy and I, of course, as he said, we are very close as families, and I've always had wonderful discussions and conversations with Mr. Murthy, but never in a fireside chat. So I think this is very, very special this morning. And it's equally special for me because I'm here with what's happening in our country. I think we're unleashing a wonderful entrepreneurial energy that has never been seen before. And as a first generation entrepreneur, I find this very exciting. Now to answer your question, Ravi, first and foremost, unlike Mr. Murthy, who had it fairly figured out in terms of what he wanted to do, I was quite an accidental entrepreneur. I never thought I wanted to start a company. I started my company really on the rebound because, as you said, I'm a brewmaster's daughter. I trained to be a brewmaster. I came back from Australia, all set to pursue a brewing career in India. But then I found it very difficult to get accepted by the brewing community in India because I was a woman. And they basically said, well, we respect your credentials, your technical skills, but we can't take the risk, and they use the word risk. We can't risk hiring a woman in a brewery because we feel you will not be able to manage various aspects of the brewing business the way you would like it done. And therefore it became quite an insult for me, and I took on this opportunity quite by accident. There was an Irish biotech entrepreneur who had come to India and who wanted to set up a biotech venture in India and was looking for a partner. I never thought I was going to be that partner because I kept introducing him to very successful businessmen. But ultimately he came and said to me, why don't you take on this challenge? Because I think I see that you are very entrepreneurial, hidden talent, but we need to bring it out. And I thought, okay, maybe this is the right time where I'm rejected by the brewing industry and maybe I should show it to them that I can actually run an industry myself. And moreover, it was all about what I had studied. It was biotechnology at the end of the day. Brewing is the world's oldest biotechnology known to man. I was a fermentation scientist and I thought, oh wow, why should I only think about fermentation as making beer? Maybe I could think of using fermentation for other things. And that's how I started Biocon. And at that point in time, I wanted to prove a lot of things when I was starting this company. First and foremost, it was a time when India was suffering from a huge brain drain. Any scientist or engineer who was worth his name in any country, the first option was to go, to the US or to overseas shores for pursuing a career. And I thought, if I could actually stop that, and if I could actually create an exciting environment for scientists and engineers to pursue what they were trying to pursue elsewhere in India, very much like what Mr. Murthy did with Infosys, I thought that would be a great sort of sense of purpose that I could follow. The second sense of purpose that I wanted to follow was really for women themselves. I just felt that women were not ready to join the economic mainstream very easily. I saw a lot of women scientists because when I went to college, I had a lot of women colleagues. But most of them, I would say 90% of them, were not interested in doing anything with their professional accreditations. They'd rather sort of just stay at home and raise a family. And I thought, oh, what a waste of very, very useful and rich talent. And therefore, another sense of purpose I had when I started Biocon was that I wanted to make it safe environment for women scientists to pursue a career path. And of course, the third thing was I wanted India to attain some credibility in research and innovation. I also felt that India's credibility was very poor when it came to research and innovation. And I knew that we were doing some really good research and innovation in various academic institutions, but it never came to the fore. And I thought, could I as a company bring that to the fore? And I think, like Mr. Murthy said, all of us believed in a set of values, and those values were about bringing national pride into what we did, leveraging the available talent pool to do something more, to build credibility for the country as a credible scientific engineering force in the world, and above all, I really believe that everything I did had to be done with a great set of values. And that great set of values to me was about empowering people to believe in their own abilities and to bring out the best in people. And I resonate with what Mr. Murthy said. My style has also been very similar to his, in the sense that I created a boundaryless organization. I encouraged a lot of brainstorming, a lot of new ideas being generated, and at the end of the day, I wanted leadership that took decisions, because I also believe that leadership is about taking decisions, and taking decisions, whether they are right or wrong, at the right time. And I think this has stood me in the best of times in the right way, because I think you must make mistakes, and I think we've made many wrong mistakes, decisions have been taken, which were, in hindsight, maybe not the best decisions. But in another way, if you look at it, those are decisions that helped us to move to another level. I very strongly believed in innovation because I felt that science is about curiosity. It's about challenging the boundaries. It is about doing and adding new knowledge. And I felt that we were not doing this very well in the country. So I really decided to focus a lot on creating a company that was innovation-led. And I'm very proud of the fact that over the decades, we have basically stood apart as a very innovative company in our space. And finally, I think one of the things I wanted to share with you is, to me, if you wanted to lead the pack or lead in the sector, you had to be very differentiated. So basically, I started by saying, okay, let's see what's out there and what is this business space all about. And how do we basically become different? How do we do things differently? Is there something which others are not doing which we can do? And that's how actually we built up this whole strategy, our strategic intent with which I developed Biocon. So initially, of course, for the first almost 20 years, we focused on developing enzyme technology. That was an area nobody was looking at. Of course, biotech was an area nobody was looking at. But when we did move into biopharmaceuticals, I think that was the same strategy that we took. What is it that we can do which nobody else has thought of? And that became our basically, strategic direction where we said, okay, let's focus on cutting-edge technologies which nobody else can take the risk with. Let's basically balance our portfolio with very gestational programs like biosimilars, which nobody had really looked at or were willing to invest in. And let's also develop a portfolio of really path-based innovative programs like oral insulin, like fusion antibodies, like siRNA technologies. And I think in the last 5 years, I think we've started converting our skeptics into believers in what we do. And I think that's the lesson that I've learned a lot. Stick with what you believe in.
So before I open it up to questions, I wanted to pursue two things that both of you have mentioned. You've talked about purpose, right? In Infosys' case, the purpose was to show that world-class excellence is possible in India and so on and so forth. For you, it was put innovation on the map. Indians can innovate, women can innovate.
and so forth. These are not things that people tend to emphasize when you talk about entrepreneurship. Purpose, a higher purpose, something soft. Why is that important?
Well, I realized pretty early that if you want your colleagues to make huge sacrifice, work very hard, be away from loved ones, go through a lot of discomfort, then you must have a larger than life purpose. Something that
Stock options alone don't do.
No. At many places where once the options are vested, what happens? I don't want to use what their t-shirt says, so you know very well. You also come from such an organization. With you and I have that in common. No, I think these material comforts, hygiene factors, they do not sustain the energy, the enthusiasm of any individual, because the beauty of human mind is it is the most flexible instrument ever invented by God. And therefore, as long as you have a much larger than life and noble objective, you can sustain the enthusiasm of people long after they have got their stock option, they have bought their big houses, they have sent their children abroad for higher studies, all of that. Because that is still eluding us. That is still, the reaching that is asymptotic. So therefore, I would say have a much larger than life objective if you want to sustain the enthusiasm of people.
Yeah, I think it's an emotional buy-in. It's more than a material buy-in, it's an emotional buy-in. If you believe in what you're doing, and if you start seeing that it's making a huge global impact or a big difference or a big impact, I think that gives you that sort of raison d'etre to keep moving on and on. I don't think stock options will do that.
And both of you talked about values.
And it is about value creation at the end of the day.
Yeah, so
Because I don't know, but I think that's the value matrix that you're talking about. I think you have to be able to see for yourself the impact you made and the value you created. That is the kind of the emotional buy-in, the sense of fulfillment you get and having created the kind of value that you never thought was possible. That's what basically gives you that sort of sense of purpose to that.
Pretty early we decided that having the objective of Infosys becoming the most respected company in India first, and then one of the globally respected companies as our one of our prime objectives. So we simply said, in everything that you do, ask if this action of yours brings better respect for the organization from stakeholders and for you from within the organization. I think every one of us is wanting to raise our self-esteem day after day after day. I have had the very interesting experience of being a vendor, going to some of our customers in India and outside India. And the way our customers have treated me, sometimes I get surprised. I am a bloody vendor. Why is the chairman, CEO of the bank coming to the reception to meet me? You know why they did that? Not because of me, because we stood for something called respect. We said we will enhance respect in everything we do. So therefore, having such an aspirational target He's good for everybody, those that are very rich, those that have achieved a lot, all of that.
And I think just one message I'd like to sort of share with all of you, because you're all founders and you're really go. I think it is about making sure that you aspire to be globally very respected. I think that's a very, very important part of your aspiration. So whatever you do, whether you've got not a very differentiated product or you have a very differentiated product, make sure that you do it in a way that earns you a lot of global respect because of quality, because of why the way you're doing it very, very meticulously, whether it's got a stamp of excellence about it. I really believe that's something which you must all aspire.
Super. Now let's engage all of you. I think that mic's around. You have mics. You don't need this. Okay. Let's get about 7, 8 questions, and then that will allow us to pick 2 or 3 themes and then go explore. Go ahead.
I have one small request.
Yes.
I just want women also to ask some questions, because somehow in India what I find is only men all the time. So in some mechanism whereby alternately they can have men and women or something, I don't know, whatever way you go.
Great. I don't think that's going to be an issue in this room, but it's a very good reminder. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of this inspiration that you shared with us. I have a question. I'm very curious about the first few years that you were the founder and CEO of the company, specifically in the first 5 years. To build the companies that you built in terms of the value, in terms of what is achieved in market capitalism and that. I'm very curious, in the first 5 years, what were your day-to-day activities like? What did you do as the CEO of the company? And with the benefit of retrospect, which of those activities do you think was the highest return on time invested for you as founders?
Super question. Next one. Yes, thanks. I think the room is small enough, you can just.
Okay, so my name is Swati. Around my husband Rohan, we run a cashback coupons website called Cashback. So my question is that at the start, how do you attract good talent being a small company? Because I think most startup founders face that problem, and especially because of the way e-commerce funding and salaries have gone. Nowadays, it's a lot about money. So how else can you attract good talent?
Super.
Hi, I'm Shiva. I run Swipe. We make smartphones and tablets. What I want to understand from both of you, because it's been a long journey, and in that journey there's been a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows. So in those tough times, how do you handle disappointments? Would be very curious to understand.
We're looking now for a lady first, and then Zia, you may have to ask, or Anjali, you may have to ask. No one else. All right, go ahead.
Zia can give us advice, not ask questions.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
This is for both of them. I spent a lot of time in the IT services industry, primarily at Wipro at Mindtree. And during those days, we used to hear developing a B2B technology product out of India is very tough. Despite hearing all those views, I took the jump, and in the last 2 years, we've developed some very good products for B2B market. After the initial success, we are finding it a bit challenging to sell it in the Indian market. We want to get your views on how to change that.
Should we start with these 3 or 4? I think it's a good set of questions. First one is, what did you do in those early years that made a big difference? So, which activities were the highest ROI when you think about the kind of company you built? I think that's the question.
What I say, ridiculous young people. For, we founded Infosys on July 7th, 1981. And we imported our first computer on February 27, 1984. It took 2.5 years to get a license and import a computer. I had to go to Delhi. I went to Delhi about 50 times. Stayed in absolutely third-rate hotels, I wouldn't say third-rate, bad hotels, near Old Delhi railway station. And in hotels of 20 rupees per day, 15 rupees per day, etc. And I had to take buses going to Loknaik Bhavan. So most of my time in India, but I made sure that my colleagues, the 6 of them, the rest of them, they went to New York because we realized that it was impossible to do any work from India because there was no computer and there were no data communications line. So my 6 colleagues were in New York. They were developing the next generation retail manufacturing and distribution application. And I was in India trying to get a telephone connection, which took us about a year and a half, getting getting license to import a computer. And at that time there was an export license ban by the United States because an Indian had diverted a computer for Delhi to Soviet Union. So the American government had stopped exporting certain kind of computers to India. So I spent 6 months in the US trying to get, etc. So what I did was foolish. But I was away from family most of the time, staying in silly hotels, walking, taking bus, and, usual stuff. Nothing exactly.
But in a sense, it's not foolish. Your job as a founder is to work on the constraints, whatever those may be.
Absolutely.
The nature of constraints has changed.
You put it very well, but
Kiran, what were you up to those first 5 years?
I had huge gender barriers and therefore huge credibility barriers just to get a credit line from a bank. So I spent a lot of time trying to convince bankers that I was actually trying to set up a very exciting business. I had to really try very hard. So I got my company registered on the 29th of November 1978 and I managed to get my first credit line from a bank in June of 1979. So it took me more than 6 months to convince a bank, and that it was not easy because it actually took. I learned in my life that it's people who make decisions, not the organizations, because I had to go from bank to bank, and it was finally one bank manager who said, okay, I think I understand what you're doing. And I got my first credit line of 3 lakhs from Canada Bank. So I spent a lot of time there. But I also spent a lot of time. Yeah, the banker was Dinesh Rao, but yes, Ratnakar was there. But I think I also spent a lot of time going across the country, trying to basically talk about enzyme technologies to a lot of the sectors that I was trying to address. So I did a lot of that rough traveling, by bus, by train. Because one thing I think Mr. Murthy will also remember, as entrepreneurs, we could not afford very much. So we had to rough it out. And I'm sure all of you are doing the same, or I hope you're doing the same. Because that's a very important part of an entrepreneurial journey. How do you rough it out? I couldn't even sometimes afford to go and see a movie because I felt that I could use that 10 rupees more effectively in something else.
I must say this is something that probably I have not talked about it much. One principle I stated when we founded Infosys, I got all my 6 younger colleagues, made them sit down and then said, folks, we have to be profitable from day one. They said, how can we be profitable? I said, it's very simple. You spend less than what you earn. And the reason was very simple. Because we started with 10,000 rupees, I said, look, if you want to go public, at that time you needed 3 crores of equity for a company that has its IPO. I said, out of that, even if you brought 40% from outside, your equity together will have to be 1 crore 80 lakhs. I said, you have to take it from 10,000 rupees to 1 crore 80 lakhs. And that's a long, long, long journey. And therefore I said, every year we spend less than what we earn, we declare dividend out of that, you pay taxes on that, and put it back as your equity.
Hey, look at this.
I just wanted to also say one more thing. See, one of the cardinal truths I felt has worked for me is that whenever I got a new colleague to join the organization, I always made sure I paid that person more than myself. You know, that was something which I did right from day one and continues till today. Amongst my leadership team, I'm the lowest paid. Of course, I can't complain, I have very high dividends. But you know, as a salary goes, I've always believed that you have to basically, demonstrate to someone whom you consider is going to be a very big asset for the company, that you actually respect them by almost telling them, listen, I think you're worth a lot more than me.
You guys are opening up Pandora's box, but now I want to ask one question. This issue of profitability from day one and frugality.
Incidentally, you are also my mantra.
Your mantra also. But tell me, is this because you guys are from a different generation of these people have all raised tens of millions of dollars already. You know, my friend in the front row has raised 100 million or whatever. So, and is the nature of internet businesses different from, you know, a services business? So how would you sort of qualify what you're saying in terms of growth versus profitability?
That's a very important question that you asked. Very important. First of all, we are in the services business. In services, you need very little working capital, and therefore we could do it right from day one. I don't know if I did it as a product company, I would have been able to do that. I don't think so. The second thing is, the mindset those days was, as Kiran also reaffirmed, entrepreneur meant you had to make use. I took 1/10 the salary that I was getting at PCS. 1/10, just 10%. So it was an accepted practice that entrepreneurship translates to a lot of sacrifice, a lot of roughing it out. You know, I mean, when I was in PCS, I used to stay in 5-star hotels. But then I went and stayed in some silly hotel next to Old Delhi railway station. I mean, it's almost a slum kind of place. But why did I do that? Because I had a larger than life objective, and I knew that this is the only way I can lead by example. If I want my colleagues who were working hard in New York to also make sure that they also spent less, this is the only way we can do. So I would say that.
Yeah, I mean,
You wouldn't change your fundamental view of.
no, I think, what we're looking at today is a very different time and age. When in the days when we started our business, I always say that, we were the first startups in the country, in many ways, because, that whole concept of startups is very alien, because there was no venture funding, there was no, the kind of marketplace that we have today that supported businesses like ours. It was all debt financing. Both of us went to the same banks, the same financial institutions, Karnataka State Financial Corporation.
And therefore, if you were starting today with this abundance of, or reasonable abundance of venture capital, would you do the same?
I still would be a bit frugal financially, because I believe that, I've always believed that a business has a certain process to go through. And therefore, before you understand that process and before you build some critical mass, I would really not keep splurging too much cash in that business. That's the way I looked at it. I've also felt that, basically invest in your business in a way where you understand what you're doing and the need of that business at that point in time. I mean, I'm very aggressive when it comes to making sure that you invest in whatever you're trying to do at a certain point in time, so that you basically get the best bang out of the buck in terms of In my case, a product-based company. So even though I was developing products right from the very beginning, of course, if I had to do it today, maybe I would have had a little more investment put into those programs. But in those days, I had to do it very gingerly. So I think that would be the difference. But at the same time, I really don't believe a lot in over-investing or over-capitalizing something when it doesn't need it.
You know, I must say, even though I run a venture capital company today, even though I'm sitting here in Kalari Capital, what I say may not be liked by the VCs, but I will say it. If I was sitting on that side, I would say, even in today's environment of abundant capital, please take as little money as possible, as late as possible, and give out as little of equity as possible. That is a fundamental principle. Kindly write it down. Give away, take as little money as possible, take it as late as possible, and give as little equity as possible. That is a very, in fact, Bill Gates himself has told me, one of the reasons why he succeeded so well is because he didn't take any venture capital. And there was venture capital available in the United States. Of course, in India it was not available, I agree with Kiran. So therefore, sorry for saying this, even though I am sitting here under the banner of Kalari Capital, I would say that that is the best principle you people can follow. And I know it is against my own self, because I run a venture capital company.
Great. Now there was a question here about handling disappointment. Not that you had to do that, but it's a relative question.
No, I'll tell you, I am a very God-fearing person. Though I keep my religion completely inside my house, I don't demonstrate any signs of my religion in public. But because I have faith in God, because I have faith in my colleagues, because I have faith in my friends, because I have faith in my well-wishers, I think that has given me tremendous help in overcoming the days when I was down. So therefore, please have faith. Have faith in yourself, in your family, in your friends, in your colleagues, etc., etc. Because faith gives you hope, and hope is the fuel that is required for you to do extraordinary things with very little, against unbelievable odds with very little resources.
So in my case, I would say that failure and disappointments have always been integral to business, right from the very start. And I think this is very true of most companies who are trying to develop a product-based business. And if you really believe in what you're doing, if you have that very strong aspirational sense of purpose, that you will be able to take whatever you're trying to do to the market and make a success of it, you get over your disappointment and your failures with a very positive sense of, defiance. And you almost feel that, look, this is something which I'm going to overcome. This is a challenge that I'm going to overcome. So that spirit of challenge is very, very strongly evoked when you actually go down this kind of a route. And if you accept it as a part of your business journey, then I think it allows you to overcome your disappointments in a much stronger way. That's what I found. And of course, you do need a lot of moral support from your ecosystem, so to speak. But in my case, it's been a fairly lonely journey for a long time. So of course, I had a lot of support from my team. So I had to keep the team together. Because yes, the teams could get quite disheartened. And it was me who had to basically make sure that they shared my confidence that we could overcome that challenge. So I think it depends. So I think if you are facing those kind of times of turbulence and disappointments, I would say that if you really believe in what you're doing, you will find a way of overcoming it, but make sure that the leadership team that you have very close to you also believe in your sense of confidence. So you do need to have that shared sense of confidence that you will overcome that back then.
Now I want to ask you a question before again opening it back there. You're both very successful, but you also have very different styles in terms of the way you lead, manage your organizations. How have you thought about managing your time? Okay, and I particularly marvel at Kiran because she does such a wide array of things. Has this always been the case, or is this now only lately that things have reached a certain point of success where you have the teams, etc.? So I'd love for both of you to share your sort of personal time management practices, if you will.
I think as a person, I delegate a lot. I have a great set of people who I believe a lot in. I think they do a great job, which frees up some of my time. And I think if I look at my journey, certainly the first 10 years is a time when I really couldn't do all the things I wanted to do today, that I do today. Today I think I like to get involved in a lot of the things that really upset me, that frustrate me. I am very, very concerned about the breakdown of governance. I am, of course, very...
You mean not in the country?
In the country. And in our city, in the way our city is governed. So I think I like to, and I believe that we are voices that can influence change. And that's why I give up some of my time to these issues. But I don't give up the kind of time that you think I do, because I do give up a very small part of my time, but I use it effectively. So I think I prioritize a lot of what I do. Of course, I also enjoy another part of my life, which is really to do with art and culture. And I do make a lot of time for that whenever I can. But I think if I was to sort of break up the time I spend on my business versus what I spend on non-business, I would say 75% is what I spend on my business and 25% is what I spend on non-business activities. But they're all interrelated, obviously.
Well, Ravi, I have very clear priorities. When I'm in the office, for me, sales is number 1 priority. Finance is number 2 priority. Then production or delivery, as we call in services, is number 3 priority. And in some way, almost at the same level is innovation in improving how we deliver. And then we have the human resources in some way comes in each of these. You need to recruit good people in sales, you need to recruit good people in finance, etc. So therefore, I don't look at HR as a separate function, it's part of all of that. So I personally believe that any successful CEO has to look at sales, finance, and then whatever product he or she is, his organization is selling. Outside the office, I am quite busy, but I am most comfortable with professors. I am not comfortable with business people. I don't think there is any Nobel laureate, any Fields Medal winner, or anybody well known in science or technology that has come to Bangalore and I haven't spent time with him. So I do that, but that is my limit is only science and technology and etc.
Now we had a question which we didn't answer, which is the early stage before you get to a big brand. How do you get smart people to come work for you, particularly at a time when there's tons of competition for talent?
Well, what we did was in 1992, we said, look, we have to somehow attract all these wonderful people from IITs and various places. So I have always believed that a resource-constrained company can build the best brand it can by doing unusual things and getting the media to focus on it. You cannot afford to put big advertisements and this and that, etc. So we sat down and said, what are the unusual things we can do in quality? What are the unusual things we can do in human resources? What are the unusual things we can do in finance, etc. Each of the leaders was requested to come out with something unusual. And the paper, the newspapers wrote, the TV guys covered us, all at their own expense. We did not spend a single thing, except there was one advertisement that we put out, the first time in the history of this country that a full-page advertisement in Times of India was given, very attractive advertisement about working for an exciting company called Infosys. And it was crafted extremely well. All of us, Nandan, myself, Hema, we all sat down and we added and we consulted some experts who are our close friends. And that advertisement, I believe, even today, that's probably the best advertisement that any consulting company has ever put out. That was in 1992. But that was a rare expense we incurred.
You know, I think it's a very, very important question because as an entrepreneur, I do struggle with attracting talent for a very unknown kind of a business model. And at a very different time in the sort of late 70s, early 80s. And I think what I found to be most effective was to really spend time going and giving talks at IITs, at Anna University. You know, I had to choose a few of the biotech programs in the country, and there were about 5 or 6 of them. So I used to go there and talk to these people, talk to the students, talk to the faculty, and tell them what we were doing. And I can tell you I was very, very fortunate that I was able to basically sell my story and attract a lot of good talent in those early days. I think that engagement is extremely important, that you go and really talk to students you know, today, of course, you can go to a number of these institutions and try and meet up with students and tell them what you're doing. And of course, there are a lot of, those days, there was no such concept of formal campus recruitments as such, which is now much more formalized today. So you should try and see if you can go and attend campus recruitments and tell them what you're doing. But in those days, I had to go and actually talk about my business, talk about what I was doing, and I was able to attract a lot of good talent who today, I'm happy to say, are senior leaders in our organization, you know, almost 3 decades later. So I think that was a very good tried and tested model, which today we should take forward into things like campus recruitment, host certain sessions, I'm sure, at campuses which can help you to attract talent.
But today, you know, one important thing is, there are zillions of TV channels, zillions of newspapers, they are all waiting to publish something. So therefore, do something unusual and you will get written about. You will get enormous publicity. But the name of the game is differentiation and doing something unusual. That's when you don't have to spend any money, you will get a lot of publicity.
Now somebody has hacked the clock. It says 0. But I'm going to now say that if there are any burning questions, this is the last few minutes to ask a question that's just absolutely burning and important. Yeah.
Thanks. So Narayana Murthy, I'm Sharon Reddy. I'm with NDT. We built a product for the US market. What you said earlier, which is raise less, raise it late, give as little equity as possible. I've actually heard this a couple of times from other entrepreneurs that I really respect. But I think the trouble we have is like it's never a case of alright, now is as late as I can raise. It's always like a movie game. Am I growing fast enough? You know, should I be raising more equity? So how do you make that decision internally where alright, now's the time to go forward.
Can you paraphrase your question, please?
Sure.
Ask me a simple question. It's easy to understand and answer.
Sure. So, how do you know when it's time to raise? Like, when is the latest? Like, how do you know that answer? Like, it's not such an easy.
No, I think as long as all of you have stretched to the floor in terms of your sacrifices, as long as all of you are convinced in your team that you have got the maximum bang for the buck in whatever money that you have spent so far, and that tomorrow morning you will not exist, you will not be able to survive without extra money, and that if you spend that money, you will see a step function jump in your future, I think that is the time to go to VC. But once again, I will say, but you have to think again and again and again and again when you go to VCs, because they do a very important job, no doubt. But remember that equity is very, very expensive. It's very easy to give it away, but it is very expensive. So therefore, be very careful.
I think I just like to sort of make a provocative comment. I think companies that are being built to exit will not really think twice about raising capital whenever they want to. But when you are trying to build an organization that is enduring, I think you will make a good judgment call along the lines of what Mr. Narayana Murthy just mentioned. Because you have to challenge yourself to a point where you say, no, this is the point where, and you make that judgment call. That's part of your growing up. You need to make those judgment calls that will get you to the next level. And I think that's an inflection point that you will very soon learn to understand. So as long as you're building a company to endure, I think those step changes, those judgment calls, those inflection points will come to you very naturally over time. I mean, I've seen that in my own organization over the decades, where every time we wanted to grow, we've had to make judgment calls which are then, I have to sort of make sure that we have a business plan to which we hold ourselves accountable.
Last question. What besides luck differentiates a good entrepreneur from a great entrepreneur?
Well, I think a good entrepreneur creates a good business, good margins, good growth, good market capitalization, good salaries for the employees, and hopefully some of it he or she will use it for philanthropy, all of that. But a great entrepreneur creates a new paradigm. Comes out with an invention that will become the industry standard, that will transform the lives of billions of people. A good entrepreneur will create a new idea that his or her own competitors will copy and then pay tribute to him or her. That's what I would say. And finally, a great entrepreneur has to be a great human being, because at the end of the day, that is really what is enduring in all of us, whether I am working today or not. My being courteous, my being decent, my being fair, my striving for respect, that has to remain irrespective of whether I am an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur. So that's what
So to me, I think a good entrepreneur is one who creates a successful business, someone who has, of course, created jobs, created value, and the rest of it that goes with creating a successful business, but is not really noticed or stands out. A great entrepreneur is one who creates a business that stands out. Somebody who's basically recognized, somebody who's, as Mr. Murthy says, makes a big impact, creates a new paradigm, and gets noticed, and impacts many, many lives. I think that's what it's all about. And it is about inspiring people. So good entrepreneurs, do good for people, great entrepreneurs inspire others to do more.
Thank you. Please put your hands together. Okay, well, from Kalari, there's a very small token of appreciation, so it's my joy to hand it over. Thank you. Thank you, Kiran. Now, I'm going to give a talk for about half an hour. I would encourage you to head home, because I'd rather you not be in the audience, but you're more than welcome to stay if you like. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give a talk for about half an hour using my favorite. Yeah, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A and a time for reflection. I'll use my second hour. Okay? But again, thank you so much. There's so much more we could have asked. And I don't know if you're open to hearing from people with questions on LinkedIn or any other platform. She's just amazing in terms of how many people she's in touch with, as you are as well. So thanks. Okay, sit down, load the